Hey guys, Bro here, and today I wanted to do a little bit of a quick video because I wanted to show you guys something that, I'm just working on a little bit. Not really working on, I wouldn't really call it that, but, just a little fun little side little thing I'm doing. And I do mean a little fun little side thing because if I show my screen here and then show you guys this. Yeah, look at this. I'm making my own Yu-Gi-Oh deck archetype, and as you may know, my name is Dark, so therefore all these cards are related to Dark, as you can see. And they're all supposed to be like fair, like it's a balance, so it's not like crazy OP. And this is my field spell. My field spell. I don't know why I said spell card. It should be field spell right there, but it's a little glitchy, which is fine. In which case, the field spell here is called the Void. As you can see, I got a cool little picture of the Void here. And, it's got me, 2023. It's even got a actual serial number and, everything. So, but it says each time a dark monster on your side of the field is destroyed by battle, only battle, you can add one dark counter on this card. During your main phase, you can remove dark counters off this card, then apply the following effects depending on what was detached. So basically, and it's not a hard once per turn, but it does matter how many counters. So I have to have a minimum of two. So meaning either two monsters have to be destroyed by battle, or somehow I have to get two counters on this card at minimum. Which if I have get rid of two counters, then I can add one dark card from my or two. I almost said from my hand. From my hand to I give my card back to my deck. No, I'm just kidding. But it says add one dark card to your hand from the deck, which means I could just add a card basically that has that's mentioning dark on it from my deck. If I remove three counters, right, I can dark cards that I have cannot or dark cards cannot be destroyed by card effects this turn. So this doesn't mean that they have to be currently on the field. It just means when I place them on the field, right? Like any card on the field cannot be destroyed. It can't be destroyed by card effects. Doesn't mean it can't be targeted. That means they can still target it. They can still banish. Because banishing is different than destroying. Destroying means that like you're just throwing it to the graveyard, while banishing is, you know, completely different. And Gokufan, if you're watching this video, I swear to God, if you cheat, I swear to God, if I suddenly see you with a bunch of banishing cards, I'm gonna lose my lid, bruh. I swear to God, I swear. Because in case you guys haven't already understood, yeah, Gokufan is gonna be the enemy, hopefully, and he's supposed to be making his deck, um, his own cards, his own 40 card deck, and we just will have like a Yu-Gi-Oh battle, and then where we have the stuff, and then I should be able to get an animator just to see maybe an animator, maybe not, who knows, I don't know how I'm gonna do this yet. So yeah, and but yeah, basically this means Mirror Force can't hurt me, but like MST just it's over. Yeah, or not MST, Cosmic Cyclone, yeah. Um, if I have 4+ counters, so if I get rid of 4 counters, then I can gain 100 life points for the total levels of every dark card in my graveyard. That means if I have like a level 8 in my graveyard, then I'd gain 800 life points. Okay, and then but it's total. So if I have like an 8 with another 8, that's 1,600 life points. So as you can see, it's not crazy. But if I had like 100 levels in there, that's 100 technically times 100. So like that'd be like 10,000 life points. I think I don't know if I did that right, or 1,000. Is it 1,000? Am I wrong? No, it's 10,000. Yeah, it's 10,000. I'm probably wrong, but we're gonna don't flame me. And then if this card, the Void, goes to the graveyard, or is if this card is in the graveyard, special summon one XYZ monster with no materials from the graveyard. This means that if the void gets sent off the field into the graveyard at all, like meaning if I just put another field spell there, so it goes to the graveyard, but if at all it goes to the graveyard, then that means that basically, if I have an Xyz monsters in the graveyard, I can special summon it, and it won't, although it won't have any materials. So it's kind of like a drawback because Xyz usually need their materials. However, this one, when I summon it, I'm just kind of summoning it, like kind of like Monster Reborn if you play Yu-Gi-Oh, except it's a field spell. This also makes it to where if it's not in the graveyard, I can't like if this card just goes to the graveyard and I have no Xyz monsters in the graveyard, nothing happens. So it's not crazy OP, but it does make it to where if it goes to the graveyard, since it's the void, right? It's the void. I can special summon a card as the void, is going to the graveyard because it's like, oh, the void going to the void. It's like two negates, two opposites. So it pushes out one of those monsters from the opposite, and they're able to, escape. So next is Shadow of Darkness. Yep. Yeah, I got a lady because waifus. Um, and it's the Shadow of Darkness. It's a level 4. And it's a warrior, of course. It doesn't look like it. I really thought about doing fiends, but my boy Dark Rebellion and my boy Phantom Knights, are some of my favorite cards. So if someone wanted to combo it, Phantom Knights and my cards, or and because there's also a bunch of warrior cards like Warrior Returning Alive, which basically means if you have a warrior card in your graveyard, you can summon it back. And then there's of course like recruitment of the army or something, which is basically just means you get a warrior card from your deck to hand. So there's a lot of warrior effects where you can, or warrior, I guess, support. So I made a Mind Warrior. If another dark monster is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Yes, you can already normal summon this card, but basically, if I put down another dark monster, which would be just anything that has the label dark like this, which I could have, I guess, been more, you know, specific, but I didn't want to make up a new effect where it's called dark like that, because then it wouldn't be playable if you actually had it in regular Yu-Gi-Oh. So, but yeah, but basically, I can special summon this card for free or normal summon it. It doesn't matter. I can normal summon it too, but it's like basically I could just special summon it if I already have a card on the field. If there's another dark card on the field, this card can be used as a substitute for any material or level. That means if I have a level 8 dark monster and then I special summon this card can also be used as a level 8, so I can make a level 8 Xyz monster. Or if I need a fusion, it substitutes for one singular material for that fusion monster. It also has 0 attack, 0 defense, meaning you're not punching anybody with this card. It does no damage. It is only used for basically materials. Um, but it's my helper basically. Like if I have this card in my hand, I'm summoning some sort of Xyz or fusion right there. Next is Knights of Darkness, and yes, look at this art. Yeah, you got the knights in there in the moon, and it's all the dark, you know. And it's a level 4 again, in case I want to do Dark Rebellion here. I like the name. If this card is normal or special summon, add 1 dark counter onto a spell or trap card on the field. That means basically, for cards like the Void, you know, you add 1 dark counter. So basically, here in this case, if I summon this card, it would go to this card. If this card, let me go back for like 2 seconds. If this card is on the field, this card would add a counter onto it, making this card have 1 more counter. So if, let's say no cards were destroyed, so it would be at 0 counters, it would go to 1 when I summon that card, which wouldn't help me do anything, by the way. As you can see, I need at minimum 2. So I need to summon at least 2 of these guys. However, when this card is destroyed by battle, only battle, only battle, not by card effect, by battle. Add one dark counter, which I should have put the literal number one, but I forgot. Add one dark counter onto a spell or trap card on the field. So that means that literally I would be if it died after it summoned, after it got summoned, like if I attacked my opponent who had higher attack points than me for just because, then this card would have two counters, and I'd be able to add one dark card from my deck to the hand. Although I'd be using both counters immediately. It has 1,800 attack, which is pretty good. It means that it's a mediocre card. Like, there's cards that easily overpower that attack. And it has 2,400 defense. That means Dark Magician still plows through him. However, certain cards like the Flame Dragon or whatever, I forget that it's like it's a Yugi card, but or like, Luster Dragon with 1,900 attack is not getting past this defense. Next is my first equipped spell called Deep Dark Shadows Helper. Deep Dark Shadow Helper. Try saying that 5 times fast. Deep Dark Shadow Helper. Deep Dark Shadow. I can't do it. As you can see, he got some pretty cool. He's like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And it says equip only to a dark monster you control. And while this card is equipped to a dark monster, specifically letting you know you can only do it to a dark monster, that monster cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects, and it gains attack and defense based on the difference of your life points and your opponent's life points. Which I should have put LP, but it's fine. This means that not only if I had this card out, right, like you can't target it, so if you had some sort of negate that like goes you specifically, or some sort of destruction card like Cosmic Cyclone or something, then it wouldn't work because you can't target it, basically making it kind of like Obelisk, but like worse because it needs an equip spell, because you can you can target the equip spell at any time, you just can't target the monster. And the monster would gain attack and defense equal or based on the difference of the life points. So let's say I had, and it doesn't matter who is higher, who is lower. It's just the difference. So if I had 1,000 life points and my opponent had 3,000 life, or I guess let's say I didn't even hit my opponent and somehow I'm almost dead. I have 1,000 life points and my opponent has 8,000. That means this guy, let's say I equipped it to this guy. This guy would gain 7,000 attack, being at 8,800, which would be crazy. Or because he would be gaining 7,000, so it'd be 9,400 defense. And keep in mind that works either way. If I have 8,000 and my opponent has 1,000, it would still be 7,000 plus attack. So if they had like a Winged Dragon Raw that bring them down to 1 life points, then that would be crazy because that means I gained a bit. Like let's say they had full health or they had like 20,000 HP, my card would be basically unkillable. However, this obviously means that it changes. So my opponent's life points, let's say it's 2,000 to 4,000. That means usually this monster would be at like 3,800. If they suddenly drop down 1,000 life points, then my attack points would go down as well. Now next, the Dark Summon Ritual, which I got a cool picture again. Got some cool pictures. Spell Quick Play spell, which means unlike this one, this is this one's equipped. This is a quick play. This means if I have it face down, I can use it on my opponent's turn. However, I can also just use it on my turn during any portion. Like any part of my turn, I can just use this. However, on my opponent's turn, I can of course use this as well, as long as it's face down. It says discard my entire hand, and I get to fusion summon 1 fusion monster from my extra deck using monsters from the field or graveyard as fusion material. Neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. Basically super polymerization, but way more balanced, since super poly, all it does is instead of discarding your entire hand, you're discarding 1 card, which could be helpful in like literally, or just do nothing, so it doesn't matter. And you can usually use monsters from either field, which means I could use your monsters as my fusion. That's why Super Poly is busted. So instead of doing that, I made it to where instead I'm fusioning from my field or graveyard. And if I use it for my graveyard, nothing happens. They don't go to my banish zone. I'm not banishing them. I'm putting them back. I'm doing nothing because they would go to the graveyard basically. So if I don't want to use from my field, I would just, and I'm using for my graveyard, I'm basically getting a free fusing as long as I get rid of my hand. It's not crazy OP like Super Poly where I use my opponent's monsters, but it's also not like completely bad because I can basically if I have the fusion material in my graveyard already, I'm just like fusing for free. However, of course, my hand has to be empty. Now, if I don't have anything in my hand, like my hand was already empty to begin with, then yeah, it's a free. It's a freebie because I don't have to. You don't have to discard something in order to activate it. It just says discard your entire hand. So if I don't have anything in my hand, I'm just activating it for free. So I get a free fusion monster if I already have the stuff in my graveyard and I have an empty hand. But that's like a whole different strategy where like, if I was going against Slifer and he put 6 cards in my hand, I probably wouldn't use this because I'm like, damn, I have 6 cards in my hand. I don't want to use these or I don't want to waste them. Next is Dark Souls, which I had video game reference. It's also a level 4. All of them are level 4s, by the way, because, you know, Dark Rebellion. Um, it's a warrior. If you control no monsters, I should say monsters, but I say if you control no monster. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, guys. It's fine. You can special summon this card from your hand, not from your deck, from your hand, not from the graveyard, from your hand. When this card is summoned, meaning whenever it comes onto the field, so I can either normal summon, by the way, or just like regular. And by the way, this art looks pretty cool. Like, it looks kind of like Dark Souls, so that's why I liked it. But yeah, basically I can either normal summon just normally, just like summon it normally, or if I just have nothing on the field, I can just boom, put it on the field without summoning. And then no matter what, when it goes on the field, I can add one dark summon ritual or the void spell or trap card from my deck to my hand. This does not do anything if it's already in my hand or if it's in the graveyard. It's only from the deck. So I can add this card, which allows me to basically get a free summon in case like I wouldn't get that card if I have monsters in my hand. So but this would be like if I have spells and traps that can get rid of cards. So like if I have, cards that are like this or something, then I could like, get this, put this down or something, or like put this down. And because keep in mind, it's like a combo. So you would have Dark Souls, it'd summon itself, and then activates effect. I would either get Dark Summon Ritual, depending on what I want to do, or I would get the Void here, which is probably the one I would get um first. And then I would, if I have this card in my hand, right? Then I would use this card because it combos. Because if there's another dark, I can just summon it for free without a normal summon. So that means I'd have two special summons, which is boom, put that down, get a card, and then boom, put that down, and then I could basically either Xyz summon here or fusion. See, fusion, get the point? Fusion. And keep in mind, I can substitute it for any one material for fusion requirement. So that means if I have a fusion requirement that's like a god card specifically, but it also needs a dark monster that's level 4 or something for some reason, then in that case, I could just summon it because I have, the Shadow of Darkness on the field who can just basically use herself as the quote unquote god card in this case. See, so it'd be like a combo, or I would like, get this card and then I could start, boppity booping where I like summon, this card, add a counter, boom, boom, bomb, and then I could like a Z summon, go into that. So next is Dark Regeneration, which is a continuous trap card. Pretty cool art if I don't say so myself. Once per turn, I gain 200 LP, which is the correct way to put it, but it would be life points times the levels of times the levels of the monsters in your graveyard or banish zone. Now I know that sounds kind of OP at first. You're thinking like, what? Times? But that means like if I have a level 8 in my banish zone, that's 2 times 8. Okay, that's 16. That means I would gain 1,600 life points. That's not really that crazy. When the Cauldron of the Old Man can just make you gain like 5,000. There's even cards that make you gain even way more than that, specifically Winged Dragon of Raw cards, but you know what I mean. So basically, but this is graveyard or banish zone. Keep in mind, it's not both. That's why it's balanced. It's not both. I'm not saying, oh, I have 17 level 8s in my graveyard and 17 level 8s in my banish zone, so now my life points are gonna go. No, it's one or the other. So I get to pick and choose whether I want my banish zone to be counted as the life point gain. In case my opponent banished like 17 of my monsters, they're at a disadvantage because I gained those life points, you know, already. Or if I'm sending a bunch of cards to my graveyard, or they're sending a bunch of my cards to my graveyard, boom, now I'm getting those life points instead too. Not both. Keep in mind, not both, just one or the other. And if this card is in the graveyard this turn, meaning it doesn't matter whether it's my opponent's turn or my turn, just basically if it goes to the graveyard and is not banished or not returned to my hand, but if it goes to the graveyard, I can add one counter onto this a spell or trap on the field. This doesn't mean my side of the field, it says on the field. That means I can choose to put a counter on my opponent's spells or traps, whether they have it flipped face up or not flipped face up. It just gets a counter. And I know what you're thinking. What does that mean? The counter could be anything. It could be like, what if I have something where if you have a counter, then you can't activate it, kind of like Cubics? Or if I make it to where I could add a counter onto my void card, boom. So like you get rid of it because you're like, oh god, I can't let him keep, healing. Like I can't let him heal. And now I have two counters because I summoned a monster that gives me a counter and I have that. Boom. So you just kind of help me out. And if you don't get rid of it, boom. So next, and I believe this is the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. It's called Chaos Counter. It's a counter trap. That means whenever you put this card face down, if an opponent activates a card, I should be able to use this card in response, no matter what, as long as it's not a, super poly type card. This is when a card effect targets one spell or trap on the field, I can negate the activation of that card effect and add one counter on a card on the field. So notice what it says negate the activation of that card effect. That doesn't mean I destroy it. That doesn't mean you discard. It just negates. So if you have, and it means negates the activation. So if your card would discard itself, because I'm negating the like for example, if you're throwing away the card to target a card, you do not throw away the card. You see what I mean? So it's like it's not that crazy because that means you still have it in your hand. However, usually they're once per turns if they're doing that, and if it's not, that's kind of broken. I'm looking at you, gokufan. You better not have that because that's kind of broken, man. Having a non once per turn negate from your hand. I'm not even planning on running negates in general other than this card. And it's not even a destruction negate, it's a just stopping you, like meaning if you have an effect, if you're my opponent and you have an effect that targets one of my cards to summon, like it just summons itself but it targets one of my opponent's card or one of my cards, then all I do is negate it. You still have in your hand, so you still have in your hand, you're not destroying it, you still have in your hand. This also means that cards don't leave the field if they are supposed to leave the field and target a card. So instead, it would just be negated, and that's it. And then it would stay on the field. And I can add a card. This is another add one counter to any card on the field. That means it could be your card, my card. So this is also good because that means basically if you activate an effect to try to, get rid of, I don't know, dark regeneration, I can activate this like boom, no you don't. Stop right there. Stop right there and then I can add one of those counters right onto the void going into a combo. So I'm like boom 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 boom. You know what I mean? So the point is that I'm trying to keep the void alive as long as possible since it's not a once per turn. It's just as long as I have the counters for it, which is great and not OP. Keep in mind, it's not crazy OP because you need counters. And even if it's not a once per turn, you still need multiple counters, which means you have to get rid of multiple cards, or your opponent has to respond to you so that you can get multiple of those counters. Hence why most of the thing is based off my opponent attacking me. So if my opponent destroys my monsters, then like I get counters for that. I don't get counters for if my cards are just being removed from the field, only if my opponent's being just, destroying my stuff. So it's not crazy OP because I'm not just having 100 counters always on my card and I'm just like, aha, draw. I draw my deck. I draw my deck. I'm not doing that. Nor am I going, life point, life point. I mean, the point of this deck is to gain life points. Keep in mind, you're supposed to gain life points. So this card is to help me gain life points, and this card is to help me gain life points. So the void, since I gain 100 life points for the total card of air in my graveyard, which also combos because that means while I'm gaining 100, if I remove 4 counters, I can gain 100 life points for every level of the cards in my graveyard. Then I can also activate Dark Regeneration and just combo on top of that to gain 200 life points for each of the levels of the monster in my graveyard too. And now I'm gaining like double the life points. And then they would combo into this. This is why this card is like the best one in my deck because basically I put this on a card. It's immune. That card itself, the monster, is immune and it's supposed to have like a bunch of attack or defense. Because as you can see, not every card has attack. In fact, a lot of these you'll notice have 0 attack since they're shadows. Any card that's like called shadow will usually have like 0 attack. Like this one's called Dark Souls, and as you know, souls can't really hurt you. So it has defense because you can't really hit a soul, but it doesn't have any attack. Like it can't really hurt you. Same with Shadow of Darkness. It can't really hurt you, but it also is just a shadow, so it has no defense as well. Unlike a soul, which can technically defend itself, and unlike it's not just gonna have light flashed at it and then disappear. While the knights of darkness are actual knights made of darkness, so that's why they can stab you. And because they're knights, they also have defense. So it makes sense. I'm using logic. So it's therefore, like I'd put this card, if I put this card on like one of these, then I could like keep it alive longer if I don't want to do certain things. Or if I want to overpower like a fusion monster, a Xyz monster, or just a regular monster like this, then I would just boom. And that's how it would go. So with that being said, if you enjoyed that, or I guess hopefully excited to see that, if it's a thing that is, because it depends on gokufan as well to finish making his. Um, and yes, we'll have 3. In case you're watching this gokufan, we'll have 3 copies of each card. Yeah. So, and with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.